In Uganda, over 80% of the population is employed in agriculture. The majority of the people in rural areas own land. Most of the agriculture is characterized by small land holdings, of which more than 70% is subsistence. In addition to supporting livelihoods, agriculture sector contributes to the national revenue and contributes to 90% of the total export. It also contributes to 22% of the GDP. Although the role of agriculture in poverty reduction and overall growth in Uganda is well recognized, investment in the sector remains minimal. The pace of socio-economic transformation in Uganda can therefore be attributed to the neglect of the agricultural sector as an engine of growth. At the moment, the agricultural sector is faced with a problem of increasing demand of data, whereas there is lack of regular surveys, an infant system for collection, analysis and storage of agricultural data. A recent study carried out estimated that if agriculture continues to grow at an average rate of 2.8% per annum, the poverty rate will reduce to 26.5% by 2015. It is also noted that if greater investments were made in agriculture and the sector grew at 5.9% per annum until 2015, the national poverty rate would be reduced by an additional 8.6%, thus reducing headcount poverty to 17.9% of the population. In the recently read budget, a total of 382 billion shillings was allocated for the sector. However, government proposed an 18% value-added tax on agricultural supplies such as hoes, fertilizers, seedlings and tractors in order to generate 30.4 billion shillings, about 0.2% of the entire budget. According to David Walakira, a budget policy specialist, there is need for more time before government can think of introducing taxes on agricultural inputs and equipment if the country is to avoid food insecurity as a result of low crop output.
The agriculture sector in Uganda is a sector that supports statistics from UBC, put it at about 76, but I personally believe that given that we are an agrarian economy for a fact, we are easily close to 80% of this economy and the people involved working in or closely related to the agriculture sector. The sector, earlier on there was a question on what has it contributed to Uganda's economy, that is the GDP. It has stumbled at about an average of 22% contribution to Uganda's GDP for the past 3 to 4 years. The sector still has grown limpingly at an average of about 1.2% per annum for the past 3-4 financial years. The sector still contributes a great load to Uganda's exports, especially through the traditional exports of coffee, the tea, but also with the new light of the other exports that we get in the horticulture. The sector does contribute quite a very huge chunk of foreign exchange revenue for Uganda in terms of exports.
Walakira says removal of exemption on taxes will lead to a drastic increase in market price for most commodities, which may lead to a food crisis and in turn increase the rate of inflation.
Inflation has averaged at about 6.9. The weighted average lending rates are still at about 20%. The CBR for about 6 months in a row is averaging about 11. The tax to GDP ratio is about 12.9 to 13%. This is the environment, this is the economy in which the agriculture sector is actually playing. And like I did mention earlier, it contributes at least 22% of this economy's GDP. So where you have all this kind of environment, the economy in which the sector is growing, and its inherent challenges that I can imagine this congregation does know about, it being highly informal, it being, for a lack of a better word, poorly funded, but then the challenge always comes in from they don't absorb the money.
Minister of State for Industry and Technology James Mutende says lack of appropriate market information is a big challenge in Uganda, since most of those involved in the sector are peasants who have a lot of demands from government. He therefore says that this tax will help meet some of these demands.
Over tax issues. So really thank you. I want to thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I know the MPs here, I won't be surprised if there's none. Because as you know, we're in the final stages of the budget, and that's why I also came late and I'll leave early. Other government officials, I know there are some who are here, officials from Agri-ProFocus, with whom I'm having a constant relationship and becoming stronger every day. The farmers, industrialists, marketers, the media, ladies and gentlemen. I have a 2-page speech, which I wish to read to you. But in the interest of time, and given what has come out, I'll read one part of it in the beginning, skip the rest of it, and read the last part when I'm winding up. So permit me to say I wish to welcome you all to this important occasion, which is meant to focus on the supply abilities of producers, build understanding for the desired market supply, terms and conditions, specifications, expectations for delivery of products and services, provide space for sustainable linkages among cultural value chain actors like yourselves, information sharing to enhance business opportunities, exhibit farmers' products and services by demonstrating and showcasing what can be supplied within the market, and very importantly, showcase the use of IT in farming as a business. That ends my first part of the discussion. When I came here, the invitation I got was talking about IT and marketing. I had no hint I'm going to talk about taxation. So I'd like to say this was an ambush, but a good one. And having said that, if you permit me, I will remove my ministerial coat and put it there and become a participant and give you my views. And I also begin by formally introducing myself. I'm Dr. James Mutende, Minister of State for Industry and Technology, the Government of Uganda.
The minister says it is high time the peasant farmers ventured into commercial farming. Value addition should be put in consideration if the country is to benefit more from agriculture, and the government is currently investing in starting up food processing industries.
It is true, and we all know this, that agriculture is our mainstay to the economy. Most of our people are involved there. And also, we do agriculture in this country. We do it to a just extent, the peasant way. And let's get that as a fact. We do agriculture the peasant way. And in fact, I thought this meeting or this conference, we're going to talk about value chain, value addition along the way. How do we ensure quality products from the world go? I'm sure Madam Mushroom, the mushrooms could be in the supermarkets. If there are supermarkets, you've taken very good care of them. They are very clean, they are well packaged, and the markets accept them on their shelves. Because that's what they are. Even as you are here, you are thinking of the next batch of mushrooms you are going to harvest. And you know they have good quality. You even know their names and their tribes, how long they will be or how tall they will be. Even before you plant them, you know them. I can assure you, the peasant farmer out there who is growing maize as we speak now on the backyard of his or her garden, or the backyard of the house, doesn't know any of those things. The only thing he or she might know is that rains are about to come and I should plant. Let me just go and say, can I go and borrow seeds from the neighbor? Or can I go and buy a few seeds from the shop?
Mutende says taxation cannot be pushed away since it is a necessity for boosting all sectors, agriculture included. One way of minimizing risks in the production chain is access to the right information. Christian Baine, the Executive Director of Coronet Uganda, is of the view that most farmers cannot access loans from banks because they fail to understand products they deal in and lack proper documentation.
I wanted to hear here, a commercial farmer here, or a plantation farmer, Van, Yesa, Kenyara, to come here and say, look, these taxes they are putting here are going to kill us or to sweep us out of business. Because those people are doing it as a business. And as my brother mentioned from the tax expert, they only tax your income, your profits actually. Don't just tax your whole income. They tax only your profits. If you made 100,000 shillings in profits, then 30%, 30,000 is what you pay to URA. It's a corporation tax. The VAT will be passed on to the guy who puts the tea or the sugar in the cup of tea. You know, this is the economics of it in a very simple way. In the advanced economies, we all know, and it's even here we are seeing it.
With the coming in place of the East African Community, much still needs to be done in order for Uganda to take advantage of the continuously widening market. This, according to Lilian Bazale, the country manager, East African Grain Council, could be achieved if the existing policies, especially the cross-border policies, are strengthened.
Policy advocacy, we do policy dialogue, regional harmonization of trade policies, regional food balance sheet, which I'll delve into later, and also removal of trade barriers. Capacity building, we do trainings. We have done training of trainers, training systems, market information. We do agribusiness trade fairs every year, Uganda, Kenya, and Tanzania. And we also do the African Grain Trade Summits every 2 years. The last one was last year in November 2013. And before that, 2011 was in Uganda, officiated by His Excellency the President. Our goal is market access by small-scale producers as well as other traders. Regional grain market prices stabilized through the warehouse consistency system and other interventions. A system of providing timely market information across the region. We work with national market information providers like FIT Uganda, like PELUM and others, but we also cover the region. So we try to bring the region to Uganda as well, in case you want to trade in Kenya, Rwanda, Burundi. You can access that information and what the markets are for specific grains in those countries. An alternative dispute resolution mechanism and arbitration, institutional framework for promoting regional trade in grain, and also dialoguing between public and private stakeholders.
Corporate social responsibility is also another factor to be considered for faster growth of agribusiness.
Different corporate organizations may have different approaches to corporate social responsibility. So whether you call it business social responsibility or corporate social responsibility, it's talking about the ways in which some businesses look at how they engage. So for example, some businesses may be looking at what they do when they have some extra money and they make a donation or they give some money to a worthy cause in their community. So that is charity. There are others who would say, well, we're not in the business of doing developmental work. We're not an NGO. We're in the business of making profits and providing a return on the investment of our shareholders. And therefore, we'll create a separate organization. And these organizations are usually called foundations. And some of you may be familiar with a foundation, for example, like the Clinton Foundation. How many people have heard of the Clinton Foundation or the Melinda and Bill Gates Foundation? Those are all examples of what businesses do when they want to engage in developmental work without doing it themselves. They set up a separate arm and they put it under a foundation, and that foundation is then asked to go out and take charge of the developmental work associated with the business. But But there are other types of models and approaches that are used. So for example, mining companies in particular would tend to use a community engagement approach to their corporate social responsibility.
In order to acquire much of the necessary market information, FIT Uganda, among several other stakeholders in the sector, organizes an annual symposium which brings together farmers from different parts of the country and other stakeholders in the agribusiness sector. The symposium also aims at giving the farmers a platform to share their experiences and forge a way forward as far as the growth of the sector is concerned.
This symposium is to bring different farmers together and different, not just farmers, but different stakeholders in the agribusiness sector. That is farmers, the government, NGOs, and different donor agencies to come together so that we could together forge a way forward to help better agriculture in our country. The purposes of this symposium, this is the 5th in the nature, and they have been growing gradually. And the purpose of this symposium is basically to address issues that different farmers are having. Accruing from last year's symposium, which was Meet the Buyer, we brought in different buyers from local and international. And they addressed the reasons. We made many connections. And so from last year's event, an issue arose that there was a need for the buyers complained that, especially the big buyers, that there were some issues that arose, things like being able to sustain the supply, because many farmers would supply but not sustainably. They supplied this year a lot, maybe this season a lot of tons, the next season they say it didn't rain or something happened. But you see, the buyers don't want stories. For them, what they want is the produce. So accruing from that, we decided to have this year's symposium tackle the issue of how do we sustain supplies. How do farmers continue to supply sustainably to these different big buyers so they could have a foothold? The biggest problem farmers, especially in developing countries, have is lack of reliable information. The information that they have access to is either outdated or it's based on bias because the people providing this information want to benefit more than the farmers and take advantage of the farmers. And so having access to reliable, relevant and up-to-date information, market information, we believe it will help the farmer to make better decisions, sell and make a better profit, but even also produce better produce. Because the kind of information we try to provide to farmers, especially like as FIT Uganda, the intervention we are bringing, is basically through the use of ICT technologies to be able to help enhance the agricultural, the dissemination channels of this information. So we're able to provide information through SMSs, because like in Uganda, statistically, over 95% of all households have access to mobile phones. So we're able to use these mobile phones to disseminate up-to-date weather information, up-to-date market price information, different big buyers who may come in and they say maybe want to buy this tonnage of this produce like maize. We're able to link all the maize farmers who can then bulk together and sell their produce.
Is there a particular category of farmers you're targeting?
Not exactly. We stretch through a wide number of commodities. Currently, we look at 46 different commodities. That is from grains to poultry to livestock. So it's really a wide range. So we are not only specialized on one specific section, but in a broad section. My message to farmers would be, it's very, very important to have access to up-to-date, relevant and reliable market information. And FIT Uganda is actually providing this service to all the farmers. We've actually developed a system called FAMIS, a Farmers Record Management Information System, which will help farmers keep their records. And the purpose of keeping these records, it will help them to do so many things. One, access loans in banks. Because one of the problems banks or financial services have is that the farmers don't have access, they don't have records, so it's very difficult for a bank to trust or to give us security. So we're able to provide them with a system that's able to keep records for them and able to access this market information reliably every day and up-to-date information. We currently have over 15,000 farmers on our database, and it's growing, this scattered throughout the country. And so I'd appeal to every farmer, if you're not yet part of FAMIS, then you really want to be part of FAMIS, because it will help you access financial services, up-to-date market information, and all these kinds of things. And it's very easy, simply by contacting FIT Uganda. and we shall be able to get you on the system.
The symposium also helps farmers to acquire information in weather patterns.
I'm called Stephen Omalajol. I work for the International Rescue Committee. The International Rescue Committee is one of the agencies working in northern Uganda on mainly livelihoods and economic empowering of farmers. I'm sure this symposium will help our farmers in the first place that already we are doing partnership with FIT Uganda, the main organizer of this symposium. The partnership is working in the sense that we have contracted FIT Uganda to be giving our farmers marketing information. And this marketing information is sent to a few farmers who will in turn pass it to the other members in the farmer groups. So the information is mainly about weather updates and prices of produce in the various locations. So if farmers are able to get market prices, they're able to search and look for better buyers who will offer them better prices for their produce. If they also get access to weather updates, at least they will be able to go around doing their activities, putting in mind that at least they have some information about the weather changes. On peasant farming, looking at our project, one huge component of our project is collective marketing. We are trying to support farmers to make sure that at least they bulk their produce and sell collectively. In doing this, they're able to get better prices for their produce because in a group they can bargain and they will surely have a higher bargaining power. So the message to the peasant farmers out there is that even if you're producing on small scale, it's very important for you to join the farmer groups and you bulk your produce and you sell collectively so that even if you're doing farming at a lower level, you're able to benefit from that higher bargaining power that comes as a result of joining a farmer group and selling collectively. The East African community looking at some companies already coming up like the East African Grain Council. I strongly believe if farmers can be put in groups and they are empowered to bulk their produce and also search for reliable buyers who will give them better prices, I think farmers can be able to get market outside Uganda. Yeah, it all depends on how empowered they are and how organized they are. I strongly believe farmers in northern Uganda, if they are organized in groups, they can sell. They can even be organized to export their produce directly.
Basically, we have two broad categories of taxes. One is direct taxes, and then the second category is indirect taxes. Direct taxes are imposed on personal incomes and property. And there is a direct contact between the taxpayer and the tax collector. And they are not easy to shift the burden. The taxpayer, the person who is taxed suffers the burden and does not shift the burden to a third party. And these taxes are progressive in nature, meaning the more the income, the more the wealth, the more the property, then the more the tax. So those are some of the features of direct taxes.
And who is entitled to this?
Entitlement in terms of what?
In terms of paying, who is entitled, who is the one who is supposed to pay?
Anybody who has income and property, but falling within the taxable income bracket, because there is what we call a tax threshold. If your income falls below that threshold, then you are not taxed. But if your taxable income falls on or above that threshold, then you are liable to tax. And the threshold today is taxable income of 135,000. Anything on or above is taxable at a progressive rate. We have got indirect taxes, and these are taxes which are charged on goods or services. They are called indirect because the taxpayer is not known outright. They can be shifted from individual or organization to organization at different times. And therefore, they are hidden within the prices of goods and services. That's why they are called indirect taxes. Many people pay these taxes without knowing that they are paying. I one time asked my mother, do you know how much you pay in terms of taxes? My mother said, no, the government exempted, it removed taxes on us. I laughed. And then I started, are you using a Gomez? She told me yes. Do you know how much tax is on this Gomez? She said no. Then I started working backwards. Said, now, this Gomez comes from a material called what? Cotton. It is processed like this. Stage 1, thread. Stage 2, cloth. Stage 3, draping. Stage 4, trade, dealer, agent, middleman, either importer or manufacturer, and then wholesaler and retailer before it comes back to you. It comes to you. All these stages attract different what? Taxes. And these taxes are on top of the prices that you are paying. They are included. Then we assumed a certain value, and we arrived at a certain tax on a single commodity that she's consuming. I went to paraffin. I went to petrol, where she uses it indirectly because she uses a vehicle which uses petrol and diesel. At the end of it all, I extracted a hypothetical figure of about 1 million in a year that she pays. She collapsed. So when we talk of indirect taxes, definitely the burden can be shifted, the incidence of that tax can be shifted from party to party up to the consumer. And the final consumer now we have in Uganda is that person who is the poor. Because the rich are agents, they are middlemen, they are manufacturers, they are landlords. So the poor is the student. The poor, just there in the village, not all students, I'm sorry to say. The poor is the peasant. The poor, and these are the consumers of goods either locally manufactured or imported, and which have attracted taxes at different stages, at different value chain level or development. So I should say indirect taxes, 1, charged on commodities, that is goods and services. 2, they are difficult to determine their incidence or their final resting points immediately, because the commodities are moving from person, from dealer, from where to the final consumer. But all this depends, the chance of shifting backwards or forward the tax depends on the price elasticity of demand for the commodity that is involved. And therefore, by the way, what I have even to talk about is that indirect taxes, there is no direct contact between the taxpayer and the tax collector, because they are paid through collection agents, retailers, wholesalers, manufacturers, you see. So it is a chain. And therefore, that's why my mother was not able to know that she was paying taxes. There is ignorance about how much tax. There is ignorance about whether the commodity is taxed or not. So that is, when I want to talk about the distinction between direct and indirect taxes, it becomes almost a full day's engagement. Now, what are these examples of direct taxes? Now, on the other side, direct taxes, we have income tax, personal income tax. We have corporation tax that is paid by companies. We have land tax. I think in Uganda it's not yet established, but in other countries they have the land tax, mainly to discourage land monopoly and even to open up land for serious developers. Instead of people owning land which is idle, they can tax every acre that is not utilized and exempt somebody who has land and has put it into use. That one is not taxable. So that now the absentee landlords, those landlords who are not putting into use the available land, in fear of paying the land tax on every acre that is idle, can release this land through sale to serious developers. And then we get development, we get growth, economic expansion, we get employment, we get all that government revenue. So I'm saying land tax, income tax, corporation tax. Then we have also a tax on, I've forgotten some of these direct taxes. Graduated tax, which was now, it is now suspended. I should say it is suspended because I don't want to use the word abolished. Because anytime it can be brought back, it is on suspense. You see, in the future when they see the need, they can call it back. So it is also a direct tax. And I think there is also a tax known as inheritance duty. That is a tax charged on property inherited by a person who has relatives, who has people who wish this person the best in the future. So you can inherit property and you pay tax. There is a gifts tax. A person who is receiving gifts in form of monetary value, that gift has to be taxed in some countries. And I think, I don't know whether here in Uganda we are collecting. Yeah, at one time, a person even won a competition and received a gift of about 60 million. This person, I have forgotten the name, but he was in Hoima. And when he came to collect his gift from that competition, the management of the competition, he was told to pay 6 million in the form of tax on that gift. It became a shock in his life, he said now. But of course, there are certain provisions in the Income Tax Act which allow the taxpayer to ask for exemption. And they are granted if it is a single kind of event and it is not a business. This is just a single strike of, the law is there. But some people out of ignorance, they don't know how to claim their rights and they don't know what their obligations and they don't know. So there is ignorance in the taxation arena, taxation area. And that's why many people complain.
Now, Professor,
yes,
still on
yes.
The fact of ignorance.
Yes.
Let's talk about the recent reintroduction of taxes on the agricultural inputs.
Agricultural inputs.
Who is the main loser in this?
At this time, I should say, the loser is the consumer.
Not the farmers?
The farmers also indirectly lose. It is a loss at different levels of interaction. Because now I've talked of shifting the tax forward and shifting the tax backward. And that is what we call the possibility of tax incidence. Where does the burden fall finally when the commodity is taxed? Now, if the producer has an opportunity, he can shift the tax to the dealer. But in most cases here in Uganda, the producer is disadvantaged. Does not have that chance of negotiating power. He's at the mercy of the dealer. You have seen in the clip today, if you were there, how Mr. Kizito succumbed to the buyer. He delivered, and then the buyer had excess powers to determine the price without Kizito's influence. In fact, Kizito found himself accepting because he could not reverse the entry. He could not take back the output. It was already delivered. And there was no storage facility. And even if it was there, that would need extra costs. So he just said, okay, pay me what you can. Then I go away. So the farmers are at a disadvantage. Because first of all, the inputs they are using like fertilizers, the inputs they are using like hose, maybe the packaging materials like sacks, they are also taxed. And now that they are taxed, their costs increase, their prices increase. So he's having a higher input cost, but the sales value is compromised. And that's why you find a kilo of maize, for example, is 300 shillings from the farmer. 300 shillings, how many kilos does this person save to make a million? You can imagine. How many tons and on what acres of land? And using what technology even to realize that? So you can see the elasticity of demand for this commodity, for maize, in as far as dealers are concerned, is not favoring the producer. So he has to surrender part of his revenue to make sure that the produce is taken, and in form of sacrificing the tax. So when you look at these taxes which are imposed at different stages in transportation process, the dealer has already made a constant calculation of what he wants to benefit in terms of profits. So he will just reduce the price at the dealers, at the produce, at the production level. If he was to pay you 600, he will tell you now, the market conditions are not favorable. Give me at 200. And because you have no storage, and because you are in need of buying soap, immediate basic needs at home, because the child wants to go to school tomorrow, because you have no knowledge about where the market, other market is, international or whatever, lack of information, then you say, oh, okay, you come and take at the price you want. Now, so he has shifted the tax.
So the losers here are most likely to be the farmers.
The farmers.
So we can say they are right to actually complain.
Yes.
Wow.
That's
all we wanted to hear from you, Professor. And thank you so much for taking your time to talk to us. And we really hope to have you again. With that, we come to the end of today's edition of Business Today. My name is Harriet Atiang.